What's going on, everybody? I am the Bad Doug, and welcome back to your home for everything nerdy, including today's episode of a review. So, Ms.Marvel came out literally this morning at midnight, and I got to it as soon as possible so I could make this review and everything like that. And here we are. I just want to go through my first impressions right off the bat before I get into like some of the smaller details of the episode. I really like it. It's fun, it's witty, it's got a big heart, and that's what it really needs, especially with the character Kamala Khan. It needs to have that smartness to it, and it needs to be witty and to be smart with the universe. It's because Kamala Khan's very integral to the universe, not from a point of view as like she's like America Chavez, where she's like important to like the structure of the universe, but more she's important to her character vastly relies on the universe, and that's not a bad thing at all. I love Kamala Khan. She's one of my favorite comic characters, and having the build up of the universe over the last 14 years, really helps this character in its own right. And and I think they kind of nail it here, especially with her character and her personality, especially in the first episode, before she meets her powers. And I think that they did a wonderful job of spending most of the episode not with her powers, because you got to set the character, and I think they do it pretty well. I think maybe it could have used a little more time, but that's neither here or there. But yeah, Kamala Khan, especially Iman Vellani, I'm probably saying that wrong, I hope I'm not. In her first role ever that I could pick up on is amazing. She nails it out of the park. She is Kamala Khan. I've been watching a lot of her interviews leading up to this because I've been super excited for this, because like I said, Ms.Marvel is one of my favorite comic characters of all time. So I've been watching her interviews, seeing how she acts. She's Kamala Khan. She is Kamala Khan. I think there was a interview recently where she was talking that she gets in arguments with Kevin Feige about what universe number it is. Not that it matters what number the universe is, but she gets in arguments with Kevin Feige, and which is amazing when you try to argue with the guy who literally runs the show, but keeping them to the forefront, which is integral to most of her stories. I have an omnibus for like several years. I think this came out in 2018, where her family is a major part of the omnibus, and it's impressive that even now they're like, yeah, let's keep her family involved, which aren't like a big flashy thing to keep in. So I'm very impressed that they went with us. It's also a unique setting for the MCU. The MCU is always set in some European country or New York. We've had some one-offs like with Shang-Chi, which was in San Francisco and Asia, and just there's some random parts about like Malibu with Iron Man 3. But this one's in Jersey, which is not New York, but it's really close there, and I think it's really unique not to be up close and personal with everything, but close enough where Kamala's been the sideline viewer to all these events that have happened in New York over the last 14-ish years, and I think that's really unique perspective in the MCU going forward, is seeing different places at the same times, like we saw in Hawkeye with the Avengers battle. And I think something with this show, especially how they presented, was what Homecoming wanted to be and wanted to go for, and I think that's what Homecoming needed to be like an S-tier Spider-Man film, was to have this unique perspective and unique style towards the universe, especially what they were shooting for, with him being a little nerdy with Tony Stark. Kamala Khan nails it, and nails it so perfectly in the show with Ms.Marvel. The style, the comedy, the coming of age, and I think it's more John Hughesian than what Homecoming wanted to be, and Homecoming kind of fell short there, where Ms.Marvel actually shines. So I'm very impressed there, and I'm loving the style of the show so far. Just a little detail, I thought originally that the helmet that she wears in her cosplay was 3D printed. It's not, it's cardboard. which I think is another nice touch. I mean, Bruno, who is like the main love interest character, like back and forth, like will they one day character in the comics, is a genius kind of like level electronics guy, her guy in the chair essentially. I thought he'd be like, oh, I'm a 3D printer and like everything like that, because you know, a lot of nerdy guys do that. And I thought that would be part of it, but it's cardboard. I think it's kind of like a nice touch to it, because it's like it kind of tells us a lot more about her family and how they see her passions, and I think that's very important going forward into the story of the show. Like I said, the style is super unique for the show, and I love it. It's great. It kind of gives me a mix between Booksmart, John Hughesian films mixed with like a type of like Bridge of Terabithia type of feel. And I think that Kamala Khan's that type of like in her own head like fantastical person. So that Bridge of Terabithia comes really handy. Mixed in with that coming of age stories with the John Hughesian influence is really great here. The most important thing is keeping her divide between herself and doing what she loves and cares for, and which she finds important versus her family finds important. Their views on her and the tradition of the family is very important to her character, and I think they, again, like I said, they nail that here with her family. Keep them upfront and personal is very important to her character, and I think that divide between what she loves and what her family wants for her is very important to her character, because it's part of her culture and part of how she operates in a day-to-day life, how she feels every day. I feel like at the same time the show is a love letter to the MCU. I know it's weird how love letter 14 years in rather than 50 years in, like how most places do it, but I feel like it's a love letter to the massive universe that has incorporated our lives in the cinema realm the last 14 years, at the same time as giving that love to Kamala and her historical background in the comics. And like I said, Amala Vellani is nailing it already in the first episode, and I love her in this so far. So huge props to her. She is like if you go anywhere on the internet, she has an amazing relationship with Xochitl Gomez, who played America Chavez in Multiverse Madness, and it feels like we're in good hands with these actresses and actors that are portraying these new characters who are coming into the world that we fell so in love with all those years ago, that were incorporated with these people who were basic. That sounds wrong, but like the basic foundation of how we like see men and women, and with the introduction of more diversity and more younger people who see the world differently than how our older actors have seen the world, I think is very important, and I think it's amazing that these two, at least, have been shining in both films that they've been, both projects they've been in, and I can't wait to see both of them in more stuff, especially soon. Now here comes the big issue with this first episode, and I think it's going to be with the whole series. The power change. Now if you don't know, in the comics, Kamala has this ability, I don't know if it's called that anymore, called Embiggen, or I guess in small, whatever. She can change the size of her body parts or herself on a whim, kind of like how Ant-Man does it but without the technology, or she just has control of each individual body part. And it's important for her character because a part of her character is learning to accept herself, because she's not the generic blonde woman with blue eyes and white skin. She's this kid from Jersey who is Pakistani and a woman, which doesn't help in the general sense of like the who's going to save people, and you know, she's not the generic version as she would call it. And her powers are very important to that because they're not pretty, as she says it multiple times in the comics. And part of the powers not being pretty is her accepting those powers because they're part of her as well. and it's a big step for her to accept those. And what I can get the sense of in the show is that she has Green Lantern powers, and I don't know why they changed it, and I'm gonna throw some ideas out there why they changed it, and I think it's bullshit they changed it. The first and most popular option is that people have been saying that they don't want to confuse her with Mr. Fantastic. My answer to that is that Mr. Fantastic has barely been introduced into the MCU, and honestly, I don't give a fuck. I mean, you introduce Captain Carter again, and that's the same character, essentially just British for Captain America. There's plenty of other characters that are similar to other ones that you already have. You bring in She-Hulk to bring in Hulk. So there's bullshit if you want to introduce Ms.Marvel, which is a very important character to a lot of people, and is a very integral character, especially to the universe if you're trying to catch up with their comics in a similar way. And if you want to introduce Mr. Fantastic, fuck it. Have like a crossover of some type. I don't give a fuck. It just doesn't make sense. And then another option was to make her more in line with Carol. But the thing is that her powers are supposed to be to remove herself from Carol. She's not this cosmic fighter who has the ability to shoot blasts from her hands. She has this power where she can make her hands massive, and she can just control her body in enormous and extraordinary ways, and that's important to her character, is that change in her body, and that she's not Carol. She's not Ms. Marvel from the 1990s. She's Ms. Marvel in the 2010s. She's a completely different character with a completely different type of style and different abilities. And that's important to her character, and removing that hurts her character. And my last thought is that they want a Green Lantern competitor. And the thing is you don't need a Green Lantern competitor. You don't. Because Green Lantern, as we saw from the film, was not good. And it struggled to become good. And I don't care if you're trying to get ahead of DC and be like, oh, we're making Green Lantern first, so people think that Green Lantern came second, which is bullshit. Anyways, I already know that Green Lantern came first. Is that you have to be unique, and the thing is not to copy people who aren't there yet. So that I don't get it. She has this ability, and it's not needed. I can see from a CGI perspective why they wanted to kind of change that, and I think you could have just done that simply by making it so like maybe her hands didn't grow, but like I don't know, she has the ability to like have the force of those, and you can show that through the crystal mechanics, but you have her like jumping off of platforms and shit and throwing shit like rocks and plasma and bullshit. It just doesn't make sense to me why you want to change her powers in the first place. Because there's no reason to change her powers. And her powers are really important to her character and how she grows throughout the series. I don't know, maybe I really don't know why they would change it, and I have no good answer for it either. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the first episode of Ms. Marvel. Very good, very unique. Just the power changes really bother me. Which might hold me back from loving this as much as I want to love it. But yeah, it's hitting its stride. It's hitting where it needs to hit, and yeah, the story has so far is I don't know where we're going. So far, there's no clear villain. Obviously, there's I don't know if it's just more of a coming age story where it doesn't really have a villain. It's just more like her developing as a character before we hit Marvels in 2023. I don't know, and it's gonna be really interesting to see where we grow from here. Bruno is a good character so far, and he's really good. I think that he's a good supporting character, especially for Kamala. I don't know. It's interesting to see where we're gonna go from here, and yeah. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys haven't already, subscribe. But yeah, I am the Bad Duck, and you are the internet, and I will see you guys next week for the second episode for Ms. Marvel. Bye bye.